this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television, we continue to talk about series of protest demonstrations across the national territory. Today, we would be talking about teachers of the National Union of Teachers of Higher Education, known in its French acronym as SINES, that continued its nationwide strike in some state universities across the country today. We, of course, will be telling you more on that in the second part of this newscast. Also ahead, the fight against insecurity heightens in the nation's capital and also here in the country's economic capital, Douala. A gang of three suspected of having masterminded the killing of Aveni Ava, that is a renowned Cameroonian artist, were before the press. That was in Yaoundé today. We also talk about the fight against kidnapping that is being launched by some feminists in the southwest region of Cameroon. Those are top stories. We shall be right back in just a moment. Stay with us. Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you so much for joining us in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinoxe television. Let's begin right here with a series of human interest stories tonight. A man whose name we got as Minang Marcel was this morning discovered dead or lifeless at the Pekadis neighborhood in the Douala 5 subdivision. Meanwhile, at the Cité Sik locality, it was the lifeless fetus which was picked up by a mental patient who was in search of food at the garbage spot. Details with Smanjikan Gabriel.
A difficult Tuesday morning for the inhabitants of Pekadis in the Douala 5 council area. The inhabitants got up to discover the lifeless body of a man by name Minang Marcel Damien Yves. At the side of the dead body was his bag and a wallet containing 500 francs. According to a resident of Pekadis, late Minang Marcel was only murdered and dragged to the because his footwear were found at a discussion point and his cap discovered at a mechanic workshop with some traces of blood stains on the ground. The forces of law and order, who immediately descended to the field upon their first findings, notified us that Minang Marcel Damien Yves was stabbed to death on his left side by unknown persons. The Douala 5 council workers transported the corpse to the Lakentini Hospital mortuary. At Cité Sik, it was another macabre discovery that shocked the inhabitants. A newborn baby aborted and killed by his own mother. A passerby tells us she was returning home with her child from the hospital when she saw a man bathing a baby and others crying, and when asked why he was crying, he showed the baby that he was arranging. Alerted as a result of the incident, the police and gendarme officers of Ndogbat descended to the scene. Another onlooker prays that the woman who committed such acts should be punished by God. The woman who did this should be exposed by God. We go very far in search of children, and another is throwing away a child. The incident caused traffic congestion along the stretch of roads in Cité Sik for several hours. Investigations have been opened on the two cases to track down the killer of Minang Marcel and the woman who killed a child and abandoned at the dustbin in Cité Sik.
We now talk about a gang of killers. This time around in the nation's capital, Yaoundé, they are still suspected. The alleged killers of Aveni Ava were arrested a few days ago. The three suspected bandits were presented to media men and women in the nation's capital. That was today. We share in the following report that they attacked 5 other homes in the nation's capital between October and November 2018. Details in the following story. They are 3 in number, brought before the press at the Yaoundé Digital Police following their arrest recently. They fell into the dragnet of security forces after their alleged involvement in the murder of one of Cameroon's finest musicians, Aveni Ava, on the night of November 15th, breaking 16th. Aveni Ava, according to the police report, was attacked at his home by Amadou, aged 35, 34 years old Atezwa Ambroise, and 29 years old Loic Lobe. He died one day later in hospital where he was taken to for medical care.
J'ai dit je suis pas sorti de chez moi pour ôter la vie à qui que ce soit. C'est un vol en mer qui a mal tourné.
He says that his intention was not to kill anyone. It was just a burglary incident. He did not have any intention to kill him, and no one asked him to carry out the attack, he explained.
Personne m'a commandité de faire ça.
C'est à tout hasard que vous avez tiré sur ce monsieur.
The same gang of three had attacked the residence of the Prime Minister's special advisor, the duo of Nkola Famba, and 3 other individuals in Yaoundé between October 20th to the 21st of November 2018. Guns, bullets, and cannabis were found in their keeping. As investigations continue, the suspects are under custody pending their appearance in court. And a group of suspected bandits believed to have been terrorizing the population of Bona Musadi here in the economic capital Douala have been dismantled, with some arrested and others killed by local inhabitants. That is in the Douala 5 subdivision. The track-down operation began last night in a restaurant in the said locality, as informed me Armstrong Sander tells us in the following report.
End of the road for these suspected men of the underworld, believed to have been terrorizing the population of Bona Musadi in Douala 5 subdivision and its environ. Their doom began Monday night, November 26th, at the popular restaurant in Bona Musadi, Douala, where they allegedly stole a mobile telephone. In an attempt to escape, some local inhabitants who noticed their evil acts began chasing them. The gang of four separated into 2 equal fractions, with 2 each on a motorbike, heading to opposite ends of the Bona Musadi neighborhood as the local population chased them. The group of 2 who took to Fengudom Bange towards Lending Douala 5 subdivision were intercepted at Bange Plateau by the angry population, who wasted no time to render mob justice. One was beaten, killed and burned by the angry population, while the other is on the run. The second group, who left Bona Musadi towards Makepe in Douala 5 subdivision, fell into the hands of Colonel Abakashi of the Territorial Gendarmerie Unit in Douala, who together with some determined youth chased and caught them around Total Makepe towards the Douala General Hospital.
Là où on vend les beignets à l'école, là on était nous en train de passer.
According to the suspected bandits, they were after the guy whom they say stole the telephone before being mistakenly intercepted by the local population. A narrative which, however, changed this morning at the Territorial Gendarmerie Unit. One of them, Rodrigue, who has been qualified by the local population as a notorious bandit, has been arrested, imprisoned and controversially released several times for robbery-related cases, according to the local population.
And on to something else, Isiku Ayuktabe and 9 other Ambazonian leaders appeared before judges of the military tribunal that was in the nation's capital, Yaoundé, today. They are being accused of terrorism and propagation of false information, amongst many other charges. They are due to appear in court again. That's going to be on the 6th of December 2018. We, of course, will be telling you more on that in a subsequent newscast. As I indicated, they appeared that was in the early hours of this morning at the military tribunal. On to something else, activities have resumed at camps across the national territory following a one-day sit-in strike which completely halted works in all the campus offices across the national territory. The workers' representatives, it should be noted, met with officials of the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, during which they agreed that their various revendications are going to be addressed. Some of the problems that they raised is the timely payment of their various salaries. And pensioners have stormed to the campus office in Ebolova South region of Cameroon demanding grants of their pension. What annoyed them most was the fact that campus Ebolova ignored them, saying that they themselves have been on strike for 10 months now of unpaid salaries. Let us take a look at their difficulties in the following report with Equinoxe and Aze.
They are retired compost workers in Ebolova, South region of Cameroon. Reason why they are seated in this aggrieved way is that the management of compost office has ignored their presence.
Cela pour leur pension comme moi, d'autres pour leur salaire. Mais à notre plus grande surprise, on ne nous reçoit pas.
What brings them is pension. They say they cannot continue living without the pension, which is their right.
Ils doivent nous remettre ce qu'ils doivent nous remettre.
Various problems are advanced by these disgruntled pensionaries, ranging from health,
Je suis malade, ABC, insuffisance cardiaque, je dois aller à l'hôpital.
feeding, transport,
Moi, je sors à plus de 200 km d'ici.
rent, and many others. Life, they add, has not been rosy without this pension. Some of them say compost management has failed to welcome them in a friendly manner. The management has told them they won't be able to get their pension because current workers are 10 months now without salary.
Ils disent qu'ils ont fait 10 mois sans salaire. C'est pour cela qu'eux aussi ils ne veulent pas nous payer.
But the disgruntled pensionaries have vowed to put an end to such a treatment meted on them as if they were hostages.
Pour nous faire prendre le soleil, la pluie comme ça, et la soif et la famine.
Some of them have turned the Ebolova compost office as their hotel room.
And in the second part of this newscast, we shall be talking about series of protests across the national territory and that of the National Union of Teachers of Higher Education, that is known in its French acronym as SENES. Our guest tonight is an actor of the civil society and a political analyst, Mr. Eko John. We continue with our newscast tonight. Some female activists have come together to curb what they call the growing rate of kidnappings in the two Anglophone regions of Cameroon. The meeting actually took place in Boya. How can this phenomenon, which is affecting women more, according to the activists, be addressed? Derek Jato attended the seminar to that effect, or a seminar to that effect. He tells us more in the following report.
We are going to image how, in an illiterate zone.
The face of the Anglophone crisis keeps changing with time. Gone are those days of peaceful protest. Some even say the peace plant era came and the plans faded out even before sunset, with others holding that there is seemingly no space for anti-riot trucks in the two Anglophone regions. The water cannons have been replaced with these, the armored cars. The Anglophone crisis long graduated into an armed conflict, and for some time now, only fire has been answering fire in these two regions. The military forces versus the Ambazonian Defense Forces, then another level of the abduction phase. Today many say the quicker means to send a message to a target is through abduction, and at the beginning abduction was the thing of the restoration forces, but recently the same Ambazonian Defense Forces have been making outings, denying some abduction and even pointing accusing fingers at the government and some individuals who they say have picked advantage of the crisis and are today carrying out what is called here settlist calls on ground zero. And this is the reason why they are coming into the picture, the Women Coalition for Peace and Development.
Because if children are being kidnapped daily, it means that what they came to as a decision was not serious. It means they didn't keep to their word. So we are doing this press conference to call on both actors, both the state and the non-state actors involved in this Anglophone crisis, to make it possible for children to stay safe and be able to go to school.
This is a group of non-governmental organizations. They have gone into the bushes, and today they say the situation is increasingly very desperate.
Imagine you see a woman who gives birth and uses elephant grass to cut the umbilical cord. Yes, I've seen it, I saw it. Imagine the one who gives birth and nobody is there to attend or to help her. She dies and the baby dies. It is very traumatizing.
At a press conference in Boya, a message was sent to the powers that be.
If the government can sit and say, let's do this, I say go back to my president, because it's a person we look up to. If he says this should happen, it will happen. If he comes and talks to his people, he declared war in the first place, he has to declare peace.
And as women and mothers, they say if the leaders keep on playing over time for personal interests, then history will not forgive them.
Feminists there in Boya talking about the responsibility of the government as far as the crisis is concerned. Now, Isakam authorities have said that the filthy state of the city of Douala is due to lack of finance to pay the workers and fuel the hundreds of garbage trucks. They blame the Douala City Council for failing to disburse the over 50% dues owed the said company. The Douala City Council authorities on their part are yet to react after we attempted to get their reactions. Innocent as it tells us more in this report.
Douala city dwellers have not stopped fuming at and complaining on the filthy state of the cosmopolitan town. Garbage littered and dumped on streets mount daily.
On ne sait pas si on est encore, on est au Cameroun, supposons. On ne sait pas si on est au Cameroun.
They intoxicate health and the atmosphere with unpleasant smell as authorities charged with its collection and disposal fold their arms and watch.
Ça nous met mal à l'aise. Et comme ça les moustiques, on ne dort pas.
Ça nous donne rien que la nausée. On n'arrive même pas à manger.
The garbage, both in trash bins and on the tar, have been neglected for months.
Ces poubelles que vous voyez là, ça a déjà fait au moins plus de 2 mois. On ne ramasse pas.
C'est environ de 9 mois. Comment on ne touche pas?
City dwellers have not stopped questioning what is happening. Visiting the Isakam company, authorities told Equinoxe television that they have been facing some obstacles. We have faced difficulties in recovering and efficiently execute our duties. Today, we have at least 50% dues owed us by the Douala City Council. We face enormous problems functioning on this complex situation. It is an essential basic service. When we have a hindrance and fail to collect the waste just for a day, we will require 7 consecutive days to collect the trash from streets. So with this financial hindrance, we don't collect for days and the population suffers most. We need money to pay workers and to fuel the trucks to work. The Isakam authorities say they have taken some adequate measures to reduce the heaps of waste found on the streets and expects the Douala City Council to disburse money owed for workers to be paid, garbage trucks fueled, such that the sanitary condition in Douala town normalizes.
Nous essayons quand même de tenir au coup.
We strive, thanks to the assistance of the bank, that we function, even though not effectively. We have, however, taken adequate measures to remedy the situation. We have commanded 217 garbage trucks, with some already available. Before this week ends, some of the trucks will be on duty. In Douala, we have 1,300 workers who need to work effectively. If salary is available regularly and the garbage trucks fueled, then work will be done effectively with the 200 trucks we have in Douala. Equinoxe television also tries to reach authorities of the Douala City Council to confirm or criticize claims made by Isakam. They are obstacles to waste collection and disposal in Douala, but attempts to convince them to grant us interview were fruitless even on phone. Our demand for interview issued the Douala City Council on November 23, 2018 is yet to be approved. Douala remains a cosmopolitan town in the littoral region, being colonized by heaps of abandoned rubbish due to talk of war between authorities of the Douala City Council and those of Isakam over finance.
Brief note in sports football before we continue. Semi-final matches as far as the African Women's Championship Concern continued today in Ghana, the host country, in their first encounter last year's competition or last year's champions. The Super Falcons of Nigeria clashing against the vice champions, Cameroon. The scores of the match still remains unknown or is still goalless at this point in time. In the second semi-final match, Mali is going to be confronting South Africa. That is going to be this evening. The top 3 teams at the end of the set tournament will represent Africa at the World's Football Governing Body or at the FIFA World's FIFA Women's World Cup that is going to take place in France in 2019. They're bringing us to the end of this first segment of the news. Up next is Talking Points. We shall be right back. Good evening to you once again, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight in this newscast and even yesterday, we have been talking about series of protest demonstrations across the national territory. Yesterday, we're talking about workers at Chantier Naval Camp Post. Today, we are talking about workers or members of SINES, rather, that is the National Union of Teachers of Higher Education. Mr. Eko John, our guest tonight, a political analyst and a lecturer, of course, as well. Tell us. There was a meeting which took place between members of SINES and the ministry or members of the Ministry of Higher Education in Yaoundé. Why has it not been able to put an end to this strike of SINES members?
Yeah, it will. You would like to understand that in our country, things are made not to be followed. Things are made for propaganda. In fact, social dialogue is a permanent instrument invoked by the labor code since 1992, that for us to maintain a good relationship between employers and employee, social dialogue is an institution. In fact, it's an instrument that within the auspices of, in fact, labor or unions or syndicates or representatives of personnel, we have to use this instrument either at the level of the company itself, either at the level of the organization, or vis-a-vis state authorities. And that at any time there is an issue, we should use this instrument to dialogue and try to bring out concessions on what the workers or the employees are worried on. But in Cameroon, you realize that several times, since we have the government or we have the rulers or leaders or what I call kings against their subordinates, it is very difficult to see dialogue go on successfully. And most often than not, many look at those who present grievances of the workers or the employees as just an aspect of propaganda, or those who are leaders as trying to look position into the government. So which means those who are in front presently negotiating, I will not be embarrassed to tell you that this will be identified, and maybe in the next government, in the next position, only these people will be given political appointments. Which means the same situation. The moment individuals launches or comes away to cover another issue rather than solving the problem, the same problem keeps on generating. It is quite embarrassing that in Cameroon, when we are talking of the Anglophone crisis, remember we are talking of the treatment of the teachers. And today, again, we are talking about higher education teachers. And I don't know why the problem with teachers. But what I came to learn since 1990 economic devaluation in Cameroon is that teachers' salaries have always been used at the mercy of correcting economic wrongs of this nation. At the same time, teachers are the one that teaches and gives knowledge to everybody.
What makes it therefore difficult to get into the root cause of some of these problems, especially the problems of teachers? This problem of research allowances raised by members of SINES is almost an annual problem because it's been going on for decades now.
It is not only an annual problem. What I want to tell you is that
what makes it difficult to solve this problem?
Very difficult, because somewhere we have the leaders who are not willing to talk to their people. We have the leaders who are not there to serve the interests of those whom they are supposed to serve. People are there to clamor and protect the leadership. I mean the leadership of this nation rather than the interests of Cameroonians. If we go to Africa today, it is quite disheartening that among the 100 classified universities in Africa, you won't find a Cameroonian university. Many lecturers, if well paid, if motivated, should stay in research laboratory and carry out exercises, but this is not the case. We find a Cameroonian teacher at the level of the higher education moving from one school to another, moving from one academic center or professional service to another, just to meet up with the salary, because they are miserable. Since after 1992, the salaries of some of these workers were slashed down to almost 65%. And today, if we tell you, they are living on about less than 50% of what they had before 1990. You can imagine the misery. Then the allowances they are supposed to receive, extra hours they're supposed to pay these people. Other extra university duties within the university, at times for more than 2-3 years, these allowances are not paid. Examinations are organized, research are being funded, but at times this money find it difficult to come to the quarters.
But there are some reforms. The government has actually announced the recruitment of some 2,000 PhD holders in state universities in Cameroon.
Yeah, it is not a reform. It is a right. It is a right. Before the launching of the 25,000 university recruitment, some 4, 5, 6 years ago, you realize that it distorted the system of recruitment in universities. Every university is said to be autonomous, and that the formal process was that every year, every university tender a list of recruited assistants. But after the recruitment of the 25,000 employees of state personnel, this has not taken place again at the level of the university. So we have a chunk of PhD students who need this particular position to get on. But now, what are we seeing? They have just made a propaganda of going to recruit 2,000 new PhD students. We are going to see how far this will be fruitful. It equally gives an insight now to those teachers who were waiting for allowances, equally thinking that if there is a need, they are going to recruit 2,000, then it means their research allowances should also be made available. I think we have to handle every issue. They are all Cameroonians and they all need these allowances to progress in teaching. We don't need to put a Cameroonian teacher at the level of a beggar. And I will tell you that many university dons today live to see political appointments, but this is not politics. I would like you to quote me maybe in Europe or whatsoever, in developed system where you find professors, half of those who are appointed administrative professors of university. We need these people to put better brain into the generation of tomorrow. They need to be given good conditions of work. They need to be kept on a fly float system of research.
So that they can be more productive.
I will tell you that in the United States, the world called R&D, research and development, a lot of money is being tapped into these people. When you see innovations in technology, innovations at the level of the medical field, this is done by research centers. If we furnish research, then I think the present place, we will not only be consumers of foreign products, we are only going to enter into the new world of invention and innovation. But we are not doing so. The teachers are basically now living at the mercy of their own sweat by teaching from one school or another. Others even go abroad and pass more time abroad teaching in foreign university rather than teaching in the university that they were recruited.
Mr. Eko John, apart from the problem of research allowances, we have the issue of the living and working conditions of lecturers in Cameroon in general. What would be your evaluation of how teachers or lecturers are living and their working conditions in lecturers of state universities in Cameroon today?
This is what I just said. When you look at the lecturer, very few lecturers in Cameroon live on their salary. Very few, and their situation becomes very miserable. Others content by going what in English they will tell you the sabbatica. During holidays or certain times, they go to South Africa, go to Kenya, they go to Tanzania to meet up. But this is not the role of the teacher. Which means, if a teacher is in Washington or Pretoria, you find him having an uncomfortable situation. First of all, taking the risk to go to Pretoria to teach is a problem. His own students are home, he's unable to teach. Many teachers today live from one university to another, private university to another, trying to make ends meet. Is that a comfortable system of working? When people live on unforeseen salaries, unforeseen financial benefit, it keeps their mind unsettled, will mean that today I said teacher at the last, and I will not be surprised that even though they are clamoring for research allowances, in few days to come with the present financial bill, that the salaries will not even be paid on time.
Tell us what could be done to solve this problem
what I am
of research allowances.
In Africa, Cameroon should make education a priority. Before every system, throughout the world, there are two groups of persons, teachers and medical officers. When those two sectors have a problem, then the whole economy is crumbling. We need, Cameroon is the lowest, one of the lowest. Even in Zimbabwe, where we say the economic situation is deteriorating, teachers are better off. Get to Zambia, you need to go to Nigeria, we don't need to talk about that because they are more advanced. But what that counts, the sector where we neglect the most, and you know what is going on in public hospitals today. Many doctors trained by our own medical schools, and more than 50% of them move abroad because of the miserable nature of their salaries. What about those who work in clinics? The clinic personnel, the assistants, are they better taken care of? But this is a noble profession, which if taken into consideration, Cameroon would be a better place. We need to protect the teacher and protect the job of the teacher because this is the well-being and this is the way forward of a nation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Eko John, for joining us tonight on Talking Point.
The pleasure is mine.
We hope to have you some other time again.
We'll always talk to me.
Thank you so much to our viewers. It was equally a pleasure having with us in this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. Wishing you a blessed stay in the company of our programs. Until we meet again, goodbye.